Hello everyone, this is SX64Man. I've had the privilege of being able to beta test the Auro Evolution series of prototype boards that are being worked on. And you may have seen my video on the Evolution 1, which is this board right here. Today we're going to talk about the Evolution 2, but I thought I would start with a little bit of a summary of the Evolution 1 board. This was a traditional, more or less a traditional 407 board in layout. However, it introduced a whole bunch of new features, such as the EEPROM instead of the traditional kernels, which allows for, through the series of jumpers here, allows for multi-kernels and multi-basic as well as multi-character ROM. Other things that this board added on to the 407 board was the ability to use the two different voltages VIC2s, the ones from the 469 board as well as all the earlier ones, and the two different versions of SID chips as well. And the ability to switch between PAL and NTSC, as you can see by the two crystals right here. So those were some of the things that were introduced, and now let's take a look at what the second prototype looks like. And to do that, we'll have the reveal. So here's prototype 2. As you can see, it has changed quite a bit. There are still the multi-ROM capability, identical to the earlier board, and the switchable crystals between NTSC and PAL for depending on which VIC you have in there, VIC2. As well as the, like I mentioned before, the being able to do the two different voltages for the VICs and the two different voltages for the SIDs. So that's all in there. But there's a bunch of stuff that's new too. And let's talk about those things. So the first minor thing that you'll notice is the rectifier. Now there's a choice. You can use the traditional square rectifier of the earlier boards, or you can use the flat vertical rectifier similar to the 469 board. Also, moving down the power rail a little bit here, you'll notice that there's an extra voltage regulator that snuck in here, right? So there's basically VR2, which is the 5-volt regulator, and the VR1, the 12-volt regulator, and now there's a VR3, which is a 9-volt regulator. Okay. Also, the video has changed quite a bit. If you remember, the earlier prototype 1 board had the modulator replacement video up here with a couple trimmer adjustments. Now, this has a clear video circuit, okay? And it also has a 8701 type of replacement circuit for VCO. So that's kind of more reminiscent of the later boards, right? The 466 boards and the 469. Also, you'll notice there's less RAM on the board. Well, there's less RAM chips. There's just as much RAM. So this is basically like the 466 board. It has just the 2 DRAMs instead of the 8, which is kind of nice and gives you a little bit more free space on the board. And speaking of free space on a board, you'll notice that there's a whole bunch of free space right here near where the modulator section is. And one of the things that's labeled here is audio power expansion. So there's things coming down with the next prototype that are probably going to take advantage of the audio in here abilities and also of all this space. Stay tuned for that. Okay. Other things we'll see. Well, how about if I turn it on? So it is a multi-ROM, and you'll notice this doesn't look like the traditional Commodore ROM, but it actually is. It just has a bunch of different color schemes, and the reason I did that is so we'd be able to test which of the EEPROM addresses is actually active in terms of which kernel is being selected and that sort of thing. One of the nice things you can do is we can switch and see just by pressing there's a reset switch right on the corner of the board, and we can easily switch between different ROMs and try some different ones. So it's basically all the same ROM, except it's just different color schemes. But other things on this board that you'll notice is there's a lot of ESD protection. Okay, so you'll see that near a lot of the ports, as well as on the joystick ports as well. So that's really nice. So we don't blow up the CIA chips, which are very easily blown up. If you look closely at the board, you'll see there are some things that are not permanently soldered in place yet here in the cassette, because we're testing a couple different configurations for Q1, Q2, and Q3. So that's why it looks a little strange over there if you zoom in on that area, but that's otherwise it's very normal. We're just trying some different components and testing some different stuff out. Yeah, so this is the EVO 2 prototype, and although it says 407, don't believe it. Because there's elements of the 466 and the 469 in here, right? And yeah, it's a really neat board, and I'm looking forward to the development of this board and seeing where it goes. So I hope you enjoyed this video, and stay tuned for more info.